Good morning, this is Miss Grace, and it's day 3 of the remote learning packet. So, the first thing that we have to do today is we have to answer the collaborative discussion questions 1 to 3 on page 339 in your reading book. All right, so we will use the story to answer these questions. Now, remember, there is a video up and an audiobook up, so if you haven't read the story yet, please go read the story. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at our questions. It says, reread page 322. What do you learn about John, Paul, George, and Ringo from the names they thought of for their band? So then we're going to go look at page 322. Oops. Okay. And if you zoom in on the drum kit, you can see the names. The Blackjacks, the Quarrymen, Johnny and the Moondogs, that's a goofy name. The Nurk Twins, that's worse. The Beatles, the Silver Beatles, the Silver Beatles, the Rainbows, Long John Silver and the Pieces of Eight, Long John and the Beatles, the Beatles. So you can see that they kind of had a Beatles thing going, that idea of beat going there. And let's face it, some of those names are really bad. So what did we learn when we were looking at all of those names? Okay, so just from looking at those names and from reading page 322, we learned something important about John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Now, those of you who know me know there's no way my handwriting is going to fit in that little tiny block. So I have a piece of paper here and a pen. So if you need a piece of paper and a pen, stop the video and go get one. I'll wait. Okay, so let's go. Remember, when we are answering one of the questions, the first thing we want to do is we have to restate. We are absolutely going to still restate, no matter if you're going to fit it in here or you're going to put it on a piece of paper. All right, so what did you learn? What do you learn about John, Paul, George, and Ringo from the names they thought of for the band? All right, so number 1. We learned, or I learned, that I'm just going to say the Beatles instead of naming everybody. The Beatles liked to have fun because, some of those names were, I'm going to say silly. Okay? So some of those names are silly. Now, if you're only going to do it here and here, if you don't have any paper at home, that's fine, we're done. If, however, you want to go on and do a race answer, let's do that. As it says in the story, the name, I'm going to put it in quotes, okay, because the Beatles made them all laugh and the name stuck. Okay, notice I didn't use quotes here because I'm not doing it specifically from the book. I'm not copying it word for word. I'm rewording into my own words, so I don't need to do quotes here. All right, so we have our R and our A, we have our C for our citation, now we need our E for our explanation. We can put in an opinion here if we want. We can say, I think the funniest name was, I don't know, Long John Silver and the Silver Beatles was pretty stupid. So, well, let's go with that. Was Long John Silver and the, oh, it was Pieces of Eight, right? So the Pieces of Eight. Yeah, that's not a good name for a band. And I might say that. So I'm going to change my period into a semicolon. In my opinion. Now notice what I'm saying here. I'm saying, in my opinion, this is not a good name for a band. Now, I made it an opinion, but I made it very clear that it was an opinion. So this is a full race answer. This is what I would expect if we were in school. But if you are working just in your book and you just have that little tiny space, all you need is that first sentence, the restate and the answer. That's it. Everything else is what I would expect in school. All right, so now it says number 2. Review page 330. What kinds of things were surprising to the Beatles as they became famous? So again, we go and we immediately restate. You have to restate, people, whether you're in school or not, restate. So let's do that. The Beatles, and I'm going to have a bit of a list here, I think. Found several, that means there's more than 2, things to be surprising. All right, so now I'm going to use a colon because I am going to start a list of about 3 things, I think, but then I'm going to go to page 330 and make sure that I'm right, okay? Because remember, 330, if it specifies a page number, you have to go to that page number. So, the Beatlemania roller coaster reached dizzying heights during the '64 tour. Fans screamed. Da, 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 da. Beatlemania was so intense that the screaming of the fans often drowned out the songs. Excited fans didn't just miss hearing. Sometimes stars were so starstruck they didn't hear anything the Beatles said at all. John once tested this by telling a distracted restaurant waiter. Okay. Reporters interviewed the band constantly. The Fab Four often thought the questions were silly, and they loved to give silly answers. So, on page 330, there's a couple different things. Like each paragraph has something that is surprising. All right, so we can say, okay, the questions, reporters sometimes asked were silly. Fans screamed so loud they couldn't hear the music. Okay, and what's something else? The more money and more famous they became, the less the less they heard. Or, okay, they were so starstruck people didn't even listen. We could do that one, and people would be so starstruck that they wouldn't even pay attention to what was said. Okay, so that's 2 of the answers down. Now, if you want to add a little bit more to this, because this is really only the restate and the answer, so you want to be aware that we could add on to this. So question number 3, how did the Beatles' lives change as they became more famous? So you need to think about how they started out playing in some of those rough clubs in Hamburg and in Liverpool. And then they went on to perform on television in front of royalty to the point where they were afraid of being trampled on by crowds. Now, so this one I'm leaving to you. I helped with the first. I did half of the second. The third one, all you. Okay? So good luck with answering the collaboration questions.